There are 16 new books for 4th through ninth graders.
Also, discover the winners of the 2002 Young Readers' Choice Awards.
All this and more on the 2003 Young Readers' Choice Award book preview.
Hi, I'm Roger Ebook.
And I'm Rickie Reader. First, the winner of the 2002 Junior Division of the Young Readers' Choice Award. 10-year-old Bud Caldwell's mama never told him who his father was, but she left a clue, an advertisement that was all about Herman E. Calloway and his famous jazz band, the Dusky Devastators of the Depression. Now Bud is on the road and plans to find this mystery man. Nothing can stop him, not the Great Depression, not hunger or fear, not even vampires.
Like the main character in Bud, Not Buddy, Christopher Paul Curtis grew up in Flint, Michigan. Although he felt a burning desire to write, Curtis took a job hanging doors on cars and kept this job for 13 years. His wife pushed him back to writing, saying, "Better hurry up and start doing something constructive or look for a new place to live." Readers in grades 4 through 6 in the Pacific Northwest appear to be delighted that Curtis did take up writing. Bud, Not Buddy got the top votes in the YRCA Junior Division.
Roger, I think our listeners would like to learn more about the Young Readers' Choice Award, or YRCA.
Well, Rickie, did you know that the YRCA is the oldest Children's Choice Award in the United States? And it's the only regional award chosen by children of two countries. Each year, students in grades 4 through 8 in Alaska, British Columbia and Alberta, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana read and vote for their favorite book.
Kids like you will decide which book will win in 2003. There is a junior division for 4th through 6th graders with 8 nominated titles, and a middle division for 7th through ninth graders also with 8 titles. All readers who have read or listened to at least 2 of the following nominated titles can vote in March. To help you decide which of the 8 books you want to read, we'll tell you something about the authors and the stories. Our first book is After Hamlin by Bill Richardson. I think the most interesting thing about this book is the fact that the author, Bill Richardson, used to be a children's librarian and storyteller. That's when he became fascinated with the Pied Piper story. Richardson also is musical. He has a harp and he can play one song. Well known in Canada as a CBC radio host, Richardson likes stories with open endings.
That may be fascinating to you, but the best part of After Hamlin is the heroine, Penelope. The drama begins when she wakes up on the morning of her 11th birthday and can no longer hear. It happens to be the very day the Pied Piper arrives in Hamlin, seeking revenge for not having been paid for ridding the town of rats. He hypnotizes the local children with his music and leads them out of town. Penelope is the only child left behind, and she sets out on a journey to rescue the others. This is an old story with a modern twist.
Let's talk next about The Austere Academy by Lemony Snicket. Readers should know there's controversy concerning the true identity of Mr. Snicket. According to his publisher, Lemony Snicket was born before you were and is likely to die before you as well. His family has roots in a part of the country that is now underwater, and his childhood was spent in the relative splendor of the Snicket Villa. To the untrained eye, Mr. Snicket's hometown would not appear to be filled with secrets, but untrained eyes have been wrong before.
I have to disagree, Rickie. Many think that Daniel Handler is the real author, although he just pretends to represent Snicket in all literary, legal, and social matters. Handler claims to have won an award for Best Personality in 1988.
Whatever. The real story here is The Austere Academy, Book the 5th in Snicket's series of unfortunate events. The Baudelaires are off to boarding school, Proof Rock Prep. One hopes they will find somewhere to sleep and maybe even make some new friends. The children will have the chance to take part in a unique athletic program where they can develop strong legs. Strong legs can come in handy for sports or to run for your life. With some good sleep, nice friends, and strong legs, the Baudelaires will hopefully be well prepared. Just in case their time at Proof Rock Prep turns out to be another wretched episode in a series of unfortunate events.
Our next book is Because of Winn-Dixie by Kate DiCamillo. Although she now lives in Minnesota, DiCamillo grew up in Florida and set this book there. She says that it was an easy story to tell. It seemed to write itself. She just went along for the ride. Her advice to future writers is to pay attention to the world. Readers who like dog stories will love this one.
Well, you're right, Roger. I like dogs, and I loved Because of Winn-Dixie. In Florida, Winn-Dixie is the name of a supermarket, and that's where Opal found a stray dog. She knew right away that she could tell Winn-Dixie anything. About her mother, who left when Opal was 3, her father, the preacher, who won't talk about her mother at all, and Opal's own loneliness.
But the best part of this book is the fact that Winn-Dixie is such a great dog. He can smile, catch a mouse, and helps Opal make friends with strange and interesting people.
Next up is The Doll People by Anne M. Martin and Laura Godwin. I remember Anne Martin's wildly popular Babysitter Club books. This is one she wrote with her friend, picture book author Laura Godwin. Martin's stories are based on real experiences as well as her imagination. I think she made the world of dolls come alive in this one.
Agreed. The Doll People are a family of China dolls who have lived in this dollhouse for over 100 years. These dolls enjoy their lives and can even move around a bit and talk and sing when the girl Kate and her cat are asleep, and her little sister Nora is away. Of course, if the dolls are ever spotted moving, they are violating the doll code of honor and risk becoming paralyzed forever. But even this doesn't deter Annabelle Doll. She is bored and lonely and wants to explore outside the dollhouse. When Nora receives her own dollhouse, complete with the plastic Funcraft family, Annabelle has a friend at last. Together, she and Tiffany risk everything for adventure. Coming up next is a mystery, Don't Tell Anyone by Peg Carrot. Near Mount Rainier National Park, there is a log house on 10 acres of forest. That's where Peg Carrot lives with her dog and 2 cats. Carrot has been writing great kids' books for years, and her books are often YRCA nominees. She has always enjoyed writing, and when she was 10, wrote the Dog newspaper, with news of dogs in her neighborhood. When Carrot isn't writing, she likes to read, watch baseball, and play her old piano.
You know, Roger, Don't Tell Anyone combines 2 things I really like: love for animals and a good mystery. The main character is Megan, who takes care of a group of feral cats living in a vacant field. When a bulldozer arrives to prepare the land for an apartment complex, Megan must plan a rescue. All things go awry, though, when Megan witnesses a car accident and then sees the driver flee the scene. The next day, she finds a note near the cat's dishes. It reads, "If you want the cats to live, don't tell anyone."
Here's an unusual and interesting title, I Was a Rat by Philip Pullman. A self-described printaholic, Pullman grew up traveling a great deal between Africa, Australia, and England. He loved telling ghost stories to his friends and brothers and is recognized as one of the most talented children's writers in the world. A former teacher, Pullman has always considered himself a storyteller and is quite passionate about the issues of social justice. That's definitely one of the most important themes in this book.
You're right about that. I Was a Rat begins when a little boy shows up at the door of old Bob and his wife Joan. When they ask his identity, the boy keeps saying over and over again, "I was a rat." And even though Bob and Joan name him Roger and grow to love him, he exhibits rat-like characteristics. He eats like a rat and chews up everything in sight, including the teacher at the school.
But the excitement really begins when Roger is kidnapped and exploited by the unscrupulous Mr. Tapscrew. He eventually escapes, but is captured again by the police. Things look bad for Roger until a lovely princess intervenes and the real story begins to surface. Something about a fairy godmother type who turned a poor girl into a princess and a rat into a boy.
Here's a change of pace. Joey Pigza Loses Control by Jack Gantos. In 1st grade, Jack Gantos was a member of the slow reading group called the Bluebirds. Then he moved and attended a different school and learned to love both reading and writing. When Gantos was in 6th grade, he started collecting anecdotes he heard in school and later turned those into stories. This is the 2nd story about the hyperactive Joey Pigza. Maybe Gantos knows somebody just like Joey?
Actually, I know people like the character in Joey Pigza Loses Control. When Joey Pigza is reunited with his dad Carter after years of being apart, he meets a grown-up version of himself, at least a version of the way Joey used to be before he went to special ed classes and began taking medication to control his hyperactivity. Joey is a great kid, and he really wants this 6-week visit to be special. He wants to show his dad how much he loves him, but Carter Pigza is not an easy guy to love. He decides to teach Joey about baseball and winning, but it all involves taking risks that don't ring true with Joey.
The final book in the junior division is Nori Ryan's Song by Patricia Riley Giff. Gift loved to read as a child and wanted to be a writer early on. She was trained as a teacher and finally, after working with kids for a long time, Gift decided to pursue a writing career. Now she starts each day by writing and says it's like breathing to her. She tries to write books that portray ordinary people as special and bases her stories on things she remembers.
Love makes the difference in Nori Ryan's song, which is set in 1845 and during the tragic potato famine in Ireland. When the blight attacks the Ryans' crop, their potatoes are destroyed and their hopes are dashed. Then Nori's father does not return from his fishing expedition when expected. It appears as though the family will not come through. It's up to 12-year-old Nori to develop a courageous plan to overcome despair and starvation. She must find food and hope and ensure her family's survival.
So to recap, those are the 8 titles for the 4th through 6th grade junior division. All you need to do in order to vote in March is read or listen to at least 2 of them.
Let's move along to the next 8 books for 7th to 9th graders. The winner in that division for 2002 is Mary Bloody Mary by Carolyn Meyer. As a teenager, Carolyn Meyer was shy, but she developed a strong imagination and a penchant for writing. She was editor of her high school newspaper and yearbook. Now, living in New Mexico, Meyer became interested in writing about the life of Mary, one of Britain's most unpopular monarchs. She wanted to explore why a young princess might have grown into such a venomous queen. Mary, she discovered, lived a life as difficult as Cinderella's and as contemporary as a soap opera.
So Carolyn Meyer wrote the award-winning story Mary Bloody Mary. The title character, Mary Tudor, was a beautiful young princess living in a grand palace filled with servants, sparkling jewels, beautiful gowns, and lavish parties. Seemingly out of the blue, she was banished by her father, King Henry VIII, and sent to live in a cold and lonely place without money or new clothes, and without her mother. King Henry abandoned his family in order to marry his mistress, and when she had a baby, Mary was summoned back to be a serving maid to her new stepsister. Mary's difficult life and her brave response appealed to readers in the Pacific Northwest. It is the 2002 Middle Division winner.
Which book will you vote for this year? Here's the list. First up on the list is The Amber Spyglass by Philip Pullman. This is Pullman's second book on this year's YRCA list, proof that he is one of the most important and talented writers of children's literature. This is the third book in Pullman's His Dark Material series of epic tales, philosophical and exciting stories that explore moral and ethical issues combined with riveting characters and adventure. Pullman calls these books science fantasies.
I couldn't agree more. The Amber Spyglass concludes the adventures of Lyra and Will, 2 ordinary children we first met in the Golden Compass. With help from their friend Yurik Bjornsson, the armored bear, and 2 tiny spies, Lyra and Will venture into a dank and gray-lit world where no living soul has ever gone before. In other parallel universes, a magnificent amber spyglass is being constructed, but its maker, Dr. Mary Malone, is in danger, and Lord Asriel, with troops of shining angels, fights his mighty rebellion, a battle of strange allies and shocking sacrifice. This spellbinding conclusion to Pullman's His Dark Materials trilogy will challenge and astonish readers.
Next up is The Book of the Lion by Michael Cadnam, who was a voracious reader as a child. He says that by reading, he learned to decode the secrets of the world and maintained his early fascination with words. An award-winning poet, Cadnam first wrote suspense novels for adults and later turned his hand towards thrillers and horror stories for young adults. He likes to give voice to characters who ordinarily would not speak, telling a story from another point of view.
That's definitely the case in the Book of the Lion. Here we see England in the 12th century through the eyes of 17-year-old Edmund, who is falsely accused and imprisoned. But a knight unexpectedly intervenes on his behalf and compels Edmund to join the forces of Richard Lionheart and his crusades in the Holy Land.
But Rickie, the real action and drama of this story includes storms at sea, the brutality of hand-to-hand combat, and the telling of one of the classic horse and lance battles of recorded history, the Battle of Arsuf. In the middle of all the savagery, Edmund learns both courage and compassion and discovers that cruelty is sometimes considered the will of heaven.
Our next book also features another time and place. It's Homeless Bird by Gloria Whalen. When Whalen was 9 years old, she contracted rheumatic heart disease, and spent a year in bed reading. She read many books over and over and grew to like stories that explore ethical and moral decisions. A short story and poetry writer, as well as a novelist and former teacher, Whalen spent months of research in order to tell the story of Homeless Bird, a winner of the National Book Award.
Homeless Bird is about 13-year-old Coley, who wishes she could run away from her arranged marriage. However, like many girls in India, Coley has no choice. She is required to go along with the tradition, even if it means marrying a sickly boy who has wicked parents. On her wedding day, Coley's fate is sealed.
But the unexpected occurs, and Coley finds herself alone in a strange city of widows, all clad in white saris. Even then, this courageous young woman refuses to bow to tradition and forges her own exceptional future.
Let's take a look at an unearthly mystery. It's Kit's Wilderness by David Allman. Allman grew up in a small mining town in England and spent time with his grandfather listening to stories. He didn't like school but loved the library, in which he dreamed that books with his name on them would one day be on the shelves. About his childhood, Allman says, "I ran with my friends through the open spaces and the narrow lanes. We scared each other with ghost stories told in fragile tents on dark nights." That's probably where this ghost story got its beginning.
Kit's Wilderness is pretty scary. Kit's family moves to the old mining town of Stonygate in order to care for his recently widowed and ailing grandfather. Early on, the moody young John Askew identifies Kit as a descendant of an old mining family, and Askew knows their futures are as connected as their pasts. Askew forcefully leads other children in a game called Death, where a selected child goes into a dangerous abandoned mine in order to communicate with the ghosts of long-dead miners. After Kit experiences death, the ghosts of children who died working in the mines haunt him.
Here's a change of pace. It's No More Dead Dogs by Gordon Corman. Like me, Corman believes in the power of a good laugh and thinks all of the world's problems could be solved with a sense of humor. Born in Montreal, Canada, Corman grew up in Toronto and wrote his first book while he was in the 7th grade. His parents tell him that when he was 2 years old, he wanted to be a dog and used to eat dinner under the table. Maybe that influenced the writing of this funny book.
You know, Roger, No More Dead Dogs cracked me up. It's all about writing a book report on Mr. Fogelman's favorite book, titled Old Shep, My Pal. This should be easy for 8th grader Wallace Wallace. But telling the truth is important to him, so he writes in this book report,
Old Shep, My Pal is the most boring book I've read in my entire life. I did not have a favorite character. I hated everybody equally.
Mr. Fogelman is furious and sentences Wallace to detention. His punishment is to watch rehearsals of the play Old Shep, My Pal, where in spite of himself, Wallace becomes sufficiently interested to suggest enough changes to turn the play into a rock and roll rendition of the old classic.
This next book is Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli. Born in Pennsylvania, Jerry Spinelli started writing after a poem he wrote about his high school football team was published in a local newspaper. He raised a house full of children and uses their experiences and his own memories to write compelling stories. Spinelli wrote a letter to his many readers about Stargirl. Dear readers, you probably think this is a letter to you, and I guess it is. But to my way of thinking, my real letters are my books. They are how I communicate with you. They are how I write to you. Looking at it that way, I figure I've written 21 letters to you. The 21st is coming to you now.
Spinelli's letter goes on. Stargirl is unreal and totally real at the same time. She is yesterday and today and tomorrow. She does everything wrong and everything right. She laughs too loud and cries too easily, and she takes her pet rat to school. Spinelli is right. Stargirl is bizarre. Like most of the students at Micah High School, Leo is both repelled and intrigued by her strange behavior. Her clothes are peculiar, and her spontaneous ukulele serenades are just weird. Issues of nonconformity and individualism are what this book is all about. How much will Leo yield to peer pressure? Let's turn to a science fiction novel. It's Turnabout by Margaret Peterson Haddocks.
A full-time writer who lives in Pennsylvania, Haddocks grew up on a farm in Ohio and attended Miami University, receiving degrees in history, creative writing, and journalism. She worked for a time as a reporter for the Indianapolis News and still gets many of her book ideas from newspaper articles. The idea for this novel came from Haddix's thought about aging and her grandmother's 90th birthday.
It's the year 2000, and Melly and Annie Beth are old and ready to die, until they are selected to participate in Project Turnabout and are given an injection to make them grow younger and younger and younger. At some point, they are supposed to receive another injection, which will stop the unaging process, but everyone who receives the second shot dies. Now in 2985, Melly and Annie Beth are both in their teens and living on their own. They know they will need someone to take care of them when they grow too young to care for themselves. Time is running out. Back to reality, of a sort. This next book is The Wanderer by Sharon Creech. After spending 18 years teaching and writing in Europe, Creech and her husband have returned to the United States to live. She was born in Ohio and grew up in a large, noisy family, with all sorts of relatives telling stories around the kitchen table. That was how Creech began to imagine, invent, and embellish. Many of her novels have been award winners. Readers of all ages enjoy the themes she explores: self-recognition and change.
That's certainly the case with The Wanderer. These are the travel logs of 13-year-old Sophie and her cousin Cody, who is also 13. They are on an adventurous journey sailing on a sailboat called the Wanderer across the Atlantic toward England along with another cousin and 3 uncles. The travel logs detail the amazing experiences of Sophie and Cody's perilous journey as they hear stories of the past and discover their own particular strengths along the way.
All right, those are the 8 nominated titles for the 7th through 9th grade division of the Young Reader's Choice Award.
We give all of the books a thumbs up.
All you have to do is read or listen to at least 2 of the nominated books, and then you can vote in March. Thanks for listening. This year, 5 new titles for 10th to 12th graders.
Also, discover the winner of the 2002 Young Reader's Choice Award, Senior Division.
All this and more on your 2003 Young Reader's Choice Award book preview.
Hi, I'm Roger Ebook.
And I'm Rickie Reader. First, the winner of the 2002 Senior Division of the Young Reader's Choice Award, Rewind by William Slater.
When Peter is killed in a car accident, he is aware of the shriek of the tires and a brief, heavy impact. Then he floats upward, pulled into the great white light. Once in the afterlife, he observes his own funeral and hears a booming voice offering him the ultimate opportunity. The opportunity to go back at any moment and change the events leading up to his death. Now Peter's in a race against time to save his own life. But in order to do so, he has to alter the beliefs of his difficult adoptive parents, outsmart the annoying school jock, and discover a way to appreciate his own talents. If he fails, he will die permanently.
Fascinated by music as well as things grotesque and macabre, William Slater studied music at Harvard, which he hated, and preserved his sanity by writing constantly in his journals. A pianist for England's Royal Ballet School after college, Slater toured for 9 years with the Boston Ballet, traveled throughout Europe, and is currently building a house in Thailand. But what he loves best is writing science fiction. He enjoys writing about fantasy and magic, and about things that might really be possible, such as Rewind, which obviously pleased many readers in the Pacific Northwest.
The Young Reader's Choice Award is the oldest children's choice award in the United States, and it is the only regional award chosen by students of 2 countries. Each year, students in grades 10th through 12th in Alaska, British Columbia and Alberta, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana read and vote for their favorite book.
You will decide which book will win in 2003. All 10th through 12th graders who have read or listened to at least 2 of the nominated titles can vote in March. To help you decide which of the 5 nominated books you want to read, here's a brief description of each book and author. The first book on the list is Battle Dress by Amy Afaw. A graduate of West Point, Amy Afaw is currently a captain in the U.S. Army Reserves and a mother of 4. She lives with her family in Tacoma, Washington. Afaw's own experiences as a West Point cadet led to the writing of this book. She says that West Point definitely isn't for everyone. It wasn't always fun, but she feels she's a better person for it.
You can really tell she had first-hand experience by her book, Battle Dress. Looking for an escape from her disorganized, dysfunctional home life, Andy Davis figures West Point seems the only logical way out. Compared to home, West Point should be a breeze, but nothing could have prepared Andy for the first 6 weeks of cadet training.
Roger, there's a reason it's known as the Beast. This long and grueling training is designed to break cadets and then rebuild them into soldiers. Because she is one of only 2 girls in her platoon, things are even more difficult, but Andy figures anything's better than home.
Coming up next is Dreamland by Sarah Dessen. The author of 3 other young adult novels, Dessen teaches creative writing at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. Although she is no longer a teenager, Dessen remembers not only everything that happened to her during those years, but also everything that happened to her friends. She recollects the intensity of those years. Even the small stuff was significant. Dessen describes her own teenage years as a little wild, as she struggled to develop herself as a person. Her father called those her dark years.
It really does feel like a teenager wrote Dreamland. 16-year-old Caitlin had always counted on Cass, her charismatic older sister, to lead the way. But when Cass discards carefully laid out plans to go to Yale and moves away with her boyfriend, Caitlin is left to find her own path. That includes beginning an abusive relationship with the mysterious Rogerson, a handsome and dangerous young man. When Caitlin's behavior radically changes, it goes unnoticed by her parents, who are obsessed by Cass's disappearance. Hope Was Here by Joan Bauer has a few more laughs. Bauer's mother was a school teacher with a great sense of humor. Her father was a salesman that no one could say no to. One of her grandmothers was a famous storyteller. Bauer's own teenage years were often difficult and painful. All these forces combined to make Bauer a writer who writes funny and touching stories. She says, "When I was growing up, I had loads of things that were very tough in my life, but I had a sense of humor, and that helped me over some very, very rough stretches."
You nailed this one. Hope Was Here was definitely funny and frequently touching. 16-year-old Hope has traveled the United States with her Aunt Addie, who is a diner cook extraordinaire. But following the tides of comfort food dining means Hope never gets to stay in one place very long, and that's tough. This latest move threatens to be the hardest yet, leaving the excitement of New York City to run a diner in rural Wisconsin. Hope doesn't expect to even like it, much less get caught up in the town politics. But that's just what happens when her instinct tells her to trust and support G.T. Stoop, whose illness makes his entry into a heated race for mayor a surprise to everyone.
Let's take a look at a Canadian author, Gail Friesen, who has written her second book, Men of Stone. Friesen traveled around after finishing high school, and when she came back to Canada, she worked several jobs before finally returning to school to earn a degree in English literature. She decided to start writing for children because she and her own children had so much fun reading aloud together.
Well, Men of Stone, Friesen's book, deals with some serious topics. Living in a house full of women doesn't help 15-year-old Ben make sense of his life. Talking to girls is impossible, and his athletic ability is a joke. He can't even make the co-ed volleyball team. Now a thug named Claude is bullying him, and the violence escalates. But when his great-aunt Frida comes to visit, Ben learns about her former life in Russia, where she dealt with the Men of Stone, Stalin's agents who terrorized her family and town. Ben begins to see his own choices more clearly. An old woman's past can change his future.
The final book on the senior division list is The Stirk-Arm Handshake by Susan Price. Price is a British author who has been writing children's books for quite some time. Her topics range from history and realistic fiction to fantasy and science fiction and myth. She uses the endless wars between Scotland and England as the setting for her award-winning fantasy novel, The Stirk-Arm Handshake.
A huge 21st century corporation builds a time travel tube with a direct connection to 16th century England. Windsor, the greedy chief executive, has big plans to exploit the people in the land. He sends anthropologist Andrea Mitchell to live with and collect information about the Stirk-Arms, a clan of barbaric Scots who frequently raid and pillage neighboring clans. For big curvaceous Andrea, the 16th century is a better fit than modern times, and she loves her assignment. which involves living with the Sturkarms and chronicling their history. But the real joke could be on Windsor, who learns too late that closing a deal with a Sturkarm handshake means the direct opposite.
Well, those are the 5 nominated titles for the Young Reader's Choice Award Senior Division.
We give all of them a thumbs up.
All you need to do is read 2 of the books, and then you can vote for your favorite in March. Thanks for listening.